Okay, so we're going to start with making a value scale. I'm going to be using these acrylic paints. I'm not really big on acrylic, so I'll just use whatever I can, and we're going to make it from left to right, white, and then we're going to start with the number 10, the dark value, which is just the black. Okay, we're going to start, and then the white also. So I'm going to start with pouring out some of these two values. Okay, so here we are. We're going to start, and I have some water. That red over there is a red cup with water. Clean my brush real quick, and I am going to be placing with the brush only some of these values down first. We're just going to be using 10 blocks or 10 values. So I'm going to start with the white. I'm going to put 5 of those to meet halfway. And I'm just using the width of the brush for each section. It's hard to see because of the lighting, but I just put down 5 uh, white values. Now I'm going to start with the opposite side with the black. Okay, and I'm going to start right at the number 10. There's one there. And I'm going to try to use less paint as I move on to the middle of this value scale. Right here I am just going to test how much value I have, how much black. So now I'm going to start moving on to the lighter part of the value scale so that the paint can mix. And I will gauge it by using some of that middle black that I put. Since I already put the white value on the right side of the value scale, the lighter side, I'm just going to place the dark values over it. Let's just try to make it mix, blend it in. Now I'm going to go to the opposite side and put the white value on the dark side of this value scale. And I just like to adjust as I go along. Try to use the best that I can with my eye to gauge. But you know, this is where um, it gets different for people. People with more skilled eyes will really hone down on this technique. And this technique is really good for making um, black and white sketches, paintings, monochromatic. I'm kind of there. It's from number 10 to number 0 or 1. And there it is right there, the value scale. Um, and now we're going to move on to making a monochromatic scale, which is something different from this value scale. It's adding on color. Okay, so now we're going to create a monochromatic scale. I'm starting off with the number 10 and the white value. Okay, so we're going to make another value scale, but this time we're going to use a third element. And I'm making it in this tray. It's a palette tray, and it keeps your paints moist in case you need to stop painting, working on your painting. And you can put a lid on it, and it'll save it so that you can reuse your palette that you mixed your paints with. Okay, so we're gonna start by creating another value scale, black to white, and then we're gonna add the third element, which is a color. Now you can make red, blue value scale. I would encourage you to make all of them. I like to use this tertiary color. You can't see the title on the camera. I wasn't I just set the camera down, and but it's burnt umber. It's a tertiary color. I really love this color, and I love to use it for my underpaintings. And it's just something that I really think it comes out to being very useful. We're gonna make this hue, or this value scale, with using color, which is referred to as a monochromatic scale because we're not using all colors. We're just using this one color here. You can make it with red, another monochromatic scale with red or blue, anything that any color that you want to use, yellow. We just started off with the value scale from black to white, and then we're going to place this over. We're going to mix this part in it. And so we're going to place this hue, or this tertiary color, burnt umber, right in the middle. I mean, I like to place it in the middle because it lets me know where it's at. And so we're going to start off by putting smudge in there, and then I'm going to make the value scale again. Okay, something to note about this monochromatic scale. It's not just like, it's a exercise, but it's important because you can make all kinds of work, all kinds of paintings by using these three, one color, two values, by using these types of paint. Um, we're going to be making this monochromatic scale, which you make a monochromatic painting. Polychromatic means all colors. It means a colorful painting, polychromatic, but this is a monochromatic, which means one color. And then we're going to be putting this down so that you can learn how to make a monochromatic scale. So we're going to start off by putting the color first, and then we're going to put them all 10. Again, I'm applying the color first, and I'm going to be making all 10 blocks. You can see the more I use this brush without getting more paint, it's already, using up a lot of paint as I'm going along, since it's making it lighter. That's 10 right there. And this paper is palette paper, and so again, if I want to save it, preserve it, I like to paint on glass, um, but I'm using this palette paper for this exercise, for this lesson, so that way you can get exposed to using different types of materials when you want to make a painting. So I'm going to start with the 0, and I'm going to place it right over the the first block, and it mixed well. Okay, so now let's start with the other ones, and we're just gonna do it just like just adjusting, using our eye to adjust to see which one is, because there's some people who might, or others who might say that's too dark for it to be a number one or even a zero, but you just start off with one and then you gauge it um, on how you prefer. And I'll be placing the white over probably up to the middle of it, which will be the number 5. And again, I'm just putting more color as I need it so I could blend these blocks. Trying to clean my brush. Now we're going to start with the other side. And remember that the values black and white are used to change the tone of your paint. In this case, it's the burnt umber, and I'm changing the tone, changing his appearance, making it darker, making it lighter. And this comes in really handy. This technique, when I learned it, it really improved drastically my work. So since this is acrylic paint, acrylic dries really fast because it's water based, and so it's important to keep these paints moist, and I'll show you in a few on how to do that. I feel like these might be a little too even. And there we go with the number 10. Again, this is a monochromatic scale. And I think that looks to me like there it is right there. Lighting's not the best. I need to get better lighting for these type of videos. Okay, so now I'm going to take the spray bottle of water and I'm going to spray it over to keep these paints that I applied wet and alive before they dry out. And you could use this if you're making a painting and you have to do something, you have to leave, and spray water in it, and then this lid gets placed over it, and just snap it. It snaps, and so I just start snapping the lid on, and you come back to it later. Now they do dry um, inside this thing, but it like preserves your paint a little longer than what just being out in plain air would do. I think, I'm not exactly sure, depending how thick your bead is on the paint, but it, it will dry, but not as fast as just being out in the open. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to apply this type of monochromatic scale. I'm going to break it down to only 3 sections. So I'm going to be using again the burnt umber with the white value and a black value. And this is the way I start my work. You could do all 10 values blocks if you want. I just use 3 to start off with painting, and I mix a dark value, probably like I probably don't do like a straight number 10 on a monochromatic scale, but I'll probably do like a maybe a 7 or an 8, and and then maybe like 2 on the other side. But then I do need a 5 and a 6 or a 6 around that with the middle part of it. I have them here, and now I'm just going to mix three values. The middle part and then the other one. And I use a palette knife, okay? So I'm going to grab the top one first, and I like to paint on glass. I grabbed a little bit of the brown or the burnt umber, and I mix it together. Now I'm going to wipe it. Making my dark one. A little bit of the black, and mix it in there. Okay, now I need the middle one. This is the middle part, and again, this is acrylic paint. And all I have to do is make 3 different ones: a dark one, a middle one, and a light one. And I think I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to be ready to use this to start the painting. Again, this is via monochromatic painting. Alright, so now I started this new project that I'm going to paint over newspaper. It's something that I wanted to explore with. It's not something new in the art world, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I like to make this political work about workers and everyday life, so I felt it was cohesive, that I might use, like, the news that's on right now, and how it shapes our day, or it shapes our environment, and it shapes our world. And so I'm going to show you how I'm going to apply these 3 tones that I made into making a painting. There's a certain way to start them off. So we learned the value scale, we learned a monochromatic scale, and now how do we use this if we want to use it in a painting? And so to use it in a painting, the benefits of using a monochromatic scale in a painting, or making a painting out of it, is that you get to see what you're doing before you invest a lot of time, and it also makes a great starting point. Again, you can see and adjust as you go along. Maybe you don't like how something came along, and you're going to adjust it. So how do we use this scale? Well, we're going to apply by the paint by only making or painting the areas that you see in your reference of number 10s of the darkest. So the way you work it is you start from dark to light. So I'm going to show you right now that I'm going to make this um, a rough sketch of a painting using only my number 10. But there's a difference between coloring and painting. I think coloring, we tend to color by staying within the lines in a coloring book, and we're just coloring, and then we apply another color, and it becomes like a routine in a sense where you're just placing color, 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 and this same amount of color that you put on one section gets the same amount on the other section. But when you're painting and you're observing and a reference, you're only looking in this case to see where your number 10s are. That's it. So it might look like at some sections I'm outlining, in some sections there's a number 10 by itself. But what I'm really doing is just placing them where I see it. Now you can see that I really already drew it. I drawed it first, and now I'm placing where I see shadows, dark areas. In this case, it's two figures, two people, and I'm putting their clothes, wrinkled clothes, and where the creases are. And this is a great thing about these three values. It lets you make um, quick changes if you need to. it seems like, or I kind of feel like I got all the areas of number 10 that I felt that I see. So I'm going to be moving on to the middle part, which will be like a 5 or 6 on my monochromatic scale, to start placing in the areas where I feel like the those midtones are, those mid values. Um, and so I'm going to start applying those just the same way, but now I'm going to put them on different sections of these two figures. And I hope that you're able to see the transition that happens once I start placing this mid-tone, and then at the end I'll be placing the upper tones or the light tones. Um, it's like this transformation that happens that I create in my world, and so it's something magical, I feel. And yeah, I'm placing the midtones, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, based on my reference, I think that's all the midtones that I see. I got my dark tones and my midtones now, and you could already see like this transition, three-dimensional transition, and it's because of the values of this monochromatic skill. I'm really big on it because it makes a big difference in making two-dimensional work look three-dimensional, 3D. And so now I'm gonna place the height, the lights on this thing. Now I jumped start. I added them already just to make this video a little shorter. I know it's already been quite some time, but I added the light tones on the first figure that I've been working with, and now I'm gonna finish up and add the rest of the light tones on the second figure so you can get a sense of what I was doing. Again, I'm using the maybe like the two on my palette that I mixed. And when I'm placing this high part, it's very little areas. In other words, try not to put values on top of values. That's when I consider them that we're coloring and not painting. Values on top of values, it start mixing together, or tones on top, color on top of color. If you want that, then that's fine, right? But in this case, we're using the value scale and a monochromatic scale to create this. So the key is to put values next to values, not on top of each other, and it gives that appearance of a three-dimensional look. So as I'm placing these light values, I'm only placing them in the areas that I did not place any other value. At times I make adjustments, yeah, but the key thing is the light values are usually the highlights of something, of an object, of a figure. The sun's hitting it, the light's hitting it, and so it's very little light values that you would use. That's what makes it that that magical feel. Um, and also, it might be said with the dark values. Okay, I think that looks somewhat what I would expect to see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go take a little bit of just straight up white in this case, and just put in areas that I think are more lighter than the um, color that I had mixed of the light one, um, just to give a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more sharpness on there. I usually don't do this, but for this piece it's kind of like a first time that I'm painting on newspaper, and I'm using acrylic paint, and it feels a little like I'm not used to it. I usually paint on panel on wood, and so that automatically gives me the desired results that I'm seeking for. But I felt like this newspaper was, you know, uh, not working, and in part the newspaper is paper, and it will absorb a lot of the moisture of the paint. So be careful with that. So that's why I'm putting this extra step of this light, just a straight up white on different areas. And so it's looking a little bit more the way I wanted it to look, the way I expect my work to come out. I need to put some more. But just to give you a quick look at what my space is like, it looks like it's a little dark, but I have my reference there on the tablet. And here it is right here. This is what I was working with. It was in an angle, but this is the way I was doing. This is how you use a scale. Why do we use a value scale? Because you can make a lot with a value scale. A lot. And I hope that you enjoyed and learned something about this, about using a value scale, learn something about using a monochromatic scale, and I hope that you make so many paintings using this scale. You don't need color. All you have to do is make it this, practice. Color comes on top of this, and it'll be awesome.